Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We're here live on Co-working Live with Red Worldwide. And I'm Dr. Patience Jackson Rose, and we are so excited that you are here with us today. And today is Tech Thursday. So today we're going to be talking about how do we keep our businesses safe in this technology-rich community that we are a part of now. And what is it that we need to do to make sure that we are staying abreast of all of the newest challenges that businesses face when it comes to technology safety? And what do we do when we've been hit with a cyber attack or some type of cyber crime, that we, are not aware it even existed, So we're going to talk about all that today. And I'm going to tell a little bit of our story because we have a little backstory of how our company got hit with a cyber crime. We have a backstory of how we had our cards cloned. We've had a ton of things that we have experienced over our company's lifetime, our life cycle. And then, of course, I've had other companies and I've seen some things occur in those as well. And we don't want anyone to have to live through what we lived through. So live vicariously through our stuff and pay attention to what we're going to talk about today. But before we get started, I want us to start with our introduction video because we want to just set the tone for what we're going to be doing today. So with that said, let's watch.
To Tech Thursdays, where we dive deep into the critical technology topics that shape and safeguard your business. In today's episode, Keeping Your Business Safe, we explore the increasingly vital role of tech safety and how you can fortify your business against the growing landscape of cyber threats. With the rapid pace of digital innovation, businesses are more vulnerable than ever to cyber attacks that can disrupt operations, compromise sensitive data, and lead to severe financial and reputational damage. In this episode, we will walk through practical strategies designed to protect your company's most valuable assets, its data, its operations, and its future. So what exactly is tech safety? At its core, it's about safeguarding your company's information, preventing operational disruptions, and ensuring your business complies with the ever-changing regulations surrounding data privacy, such as GDPR and HIPAA. Whether it's sensitive customer data, financial records, or your intellectual property, keeping it safe is no longer optional. It's essential. The reality is that every business, regardless of size, can fall prey to cyber threats like phishing attacks, ransomware, or data breaches. The question is not if, but when. We'll cover some of the most common threats businesses face today, like phishing, those all too familiar deceptive emails designed to trick you into giving up sensitive information or downloading malicious software. Ransomware, which locks down your data and demands payment for its release, has become a multi-million-dollar business for cybercriminals, causing devastation for companies worldwide. And of course, there are the notorious denial of service (DOS) attacks, where your systems are overwhelmed with traffic, leaving legitimate users unable to access crucial resources. Data breaches, meanwhile, not only affect your bottom line, but also tarnish your reputation, sometimes irreparably. One of the key takeaways today is the importance of prioritizing cybersecurity at the executive level. A proactive approach is crucial. Having a well-thought-out cybersecurity strategy, allocating the right resources, and regularly training employees on best practices are all part of the solution. Every company's security starts from the top down. It's essential for leaders to foster a culture of security awareness, where employees understand their role in keeping the company safe from threats. Next, we'll dive into some best practices for securing your network. Think of these measures as the foundation of your business's digital fortress. From setting up firewalls to filter and block unauthorized access, to deploying intrusion detection systems that continuously monitor your network for suspicious activity, we'll cover the essential tools you need to protect your infrastructure. We'll also emphasize the importance of having antivirus and anti-malware software in place to prevent infections, and how implementing strong passwords with two-factor authentication can further safeguard your critical accounts. And don't forget, regularly updating your systems and software to patch vulnerabilities is one of the simplest but most effective ways to stay ahead of hackers. Another area we'll focus on today is protecting sensitive data and information. Data encryption, access controls, and regular backups are no longer luxury measures. They're must-haves. Encrypting your data ensures that even if it falls into the wrong hands, it remains unreadable. Implementing strong access controls helps limit exposure to sensitive information, while backups guarantee you can recover data in case of an emergency. But technology alone won't protect your business. It's just as important to educate your team. We'll highlight how building a culture of cybersecurity awareness can make a real difference in protecting your business from within. Your employees are often your first line of defense. By teaching them how to recognize phishing attempts, encouraging strong password practices, and establishing best practices for handling sensitive information, you're empowering them to be proactive and vigilant. As we close today's episode, it's important to remember that cybersecurity isn't a one-time fix. It's an ongoing process. Staying ahead of cyber threats means regularly reviewing and updating your security measures, investing in new technologies as they evolve, and partnering with cybersecurity experts when necessary. Most importantly, it means committing to continuous learning and staying informed about the latest threats and solutions. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Tech Thursdays, where we've tackled the fundamentals of tech safety. Keep tuning in to stay equipped with the knowledge you need to protect your business in this digital age. Stay safe, stay secure, and keep thriving in the ever-evolving world of technology.
One of the things that we have found is that, this is a continuous process. There's no way for me to tell you that you can learn everything that there is to know about digital safety and making sure that your company is protected, because things in technology change so frequently that it makes it very difficult for us to really understand all that is being done. Let's take a look at the slides here. If we're talking about keeping our business safe, we want to be looking at what can be done to empower you to have the right information, so you have these practical strategies and know, how to employ them at every level. So what is tech safety? Well, tech safety really encompasses three areas: protecting data, having the ability to have your sensitive information, including your customer data, their PII, that personally identifying information that we've talked about in other episodes, having that information safe, having financial records safe, and intellectual property safe. So when we're looking at data, we're looking at it across the board. I remember, and I've shared this in not a previous episode on co-working, but in some of the other speaking engagements that I've done, I've talked about how we had a client once who actually developed a software that's now being used in all of the passports, as far as the passport security technology. And the interesting thing is, in order for him to keep that intellectual property safe, he had to actually divide his services that he had being done for him, to create the software, up between three different engineers in three different countries. Okay. And none of them knew each other. None of them knew who else was working on the other parts. And because he had been interrupted several times in his process. His company had been broken into many times. He had lots of different kinds of things that were occurring, car break-ins, his home was broken into. People were really trying to get access to what he had, and they thought that they possibly could get it by stealing his computers or getting, into his tablets and his phones and other places. And he was very, very diligent and vigilant in keeping that intellectual property safe. We've had other clients, because we do work with inventors and product creators a lot, and we've had other people that go to extreme lengths to protect their what they have, the intellectual property and everything surrounding it, the trademarks, the trade styles. And so it's important, if you are thinking about protecting your data, that you are very clear, about what it is that it means for you to, as a company, make sure that the data is secure. The other thing is preventing disruptions. It means, that you are putting together measures and procedures that present cyber attack, malware infections, and data breaches that can disrupt your operations. I talked about, sharing a little bit of our story. Well, I had a situation that occurred where someone did get into my computer and they created a profile in the computer that I didn't even know was there. And they were able to log in, as long as I was online, from their computer to my computer, and they were able to steal critical data that was there, and the attacks that they created, there was, all types of things that they were getting, off of my computer, which I absolutely, was very, disheartened about, because I did have intellectual property, but it was all my own. None of the client's data was there, because we have a way of, where we keep the client data. It's not on my personal computer, but my data was there. And so now we've gone to a different route of keeping the data in other places to make sure that there is not an issue, of an attack of some sort, But when we're thinking about cyber attacks, I want you to understand that, there are things that happen when you go to different websites where different parts of your data could be compromised just by you going to that particular site. And so you want to make sure that you understand the ramifications of being in a place that's not secure. On a secure site, there are things that cannot happen. And then if you have certain types of computers, you can set it up so that your computer will not allow for critical information to be available to people, when they are, phishing or, creating situations where malware can take over, your computer. I used to be of the mindset that because I had a Mac computer and that I had all Mac devices, that I was not vulnerable to any types of attacks like that. And the fact of the matter is that as technology is growing and innovation is happening, so are the hackers. They are happening. So do believe that even though you might have a more secure system, or what you think is a more secure system, and you've done a lot of things to lock your data down, there are people that work every single day at doing things to get access to more secure systems. So I am saying to you, use best practices on this. And as we're going through talking about some of what that is, please take advantage of everything that there is here to learn. And then lastly, ensuring compliance. That's what tech safety is. Protecting your data, preventing disruptions, and ensuring compliance. If you set something in place for all of your team to use, and you put procedures in place, and you have ways that you do not want things to be transmitted, you want people to only use your systems, and you want only what it is that you've put in place to be available, you've got to insist on that and make sure that people understand that when they violate those laws, they could be playing with their job. And I do mean that, because if you do not put something in place, sometimes you are in a position where your entire company's, fortune, the money, but also the ability to do business could be compromised. I've seen it happen where someone took over an entire company. It actually was a church. They actually went in, got the information that they needed, and then they went on the Secretary of State and registered themselves as a company officer. And then, of course, from there, they did all kinds of things. And I am saying to you that by the time the person who church it was found out it was even happening, it had been that way for weeks. And a lot of damage was already done. I've seen people take over companies, and in this one particular doctor that we know, someone in his practice actually was moving funds, actually were setting themselves up as a shadow company of his company, and began to do business with his clients to the point of where eventually they were able to transfer all of the clients, not quite all of them, but enough of them, the major carriers, over to the new business, the shadow company that they had set up under their name. I mean, these are things that can really happen. And so you have to make sure that you're doing the things necessary to, make sure the regulations and data privacy laws, as well as any other type of procedures that you put in place, are being followed. Okay? All right. So what are some of the common tech threats that businesses face? Well, the first one would be phishing. These are emails or messages, text messages even, designed to trick users into revealing sensitive information or downloading malware. So let me just tell you, there is a common one that's been out for, where you get a text message, and in the text message it says that you have a package that could not be delivered. And then when you click on the link that's in the text message, it takes you to a browser. And then when you go to the browser, it starts asking you for information. And it looks just like the mail, the the USPS website. And so if you are not careful and you go ahead and put in the information, now they have critical information from you, your address, okay, and other information that it asks for you to verify yourself. And so all they need is two critical pieces of information to be able to create the profile in certain places so they can get the rest of the information. So I am saying, I went to a cyber crimes class where it was teaching business owners about all of the different types of cyber attacks that are out there and things that people can do to get your personal and critical business information and even information on your clients. And one of the things that I was so amazed about is how easy they had a mock situation where a lady called the power company and gave them two pieces of information, and the power company gave her everything else. And I'm like, oh my God, is it that easy for someone? And she was crying and she was saying, oh my God, I'm locked out and I'm this person and blah, blah, blah. I don't have access to the information that's asking me for. Can you please help me? And the person on the other end of the line gave her everything she needed to have to get into other types like banking and other kinds of accounts. And they demonstrated that by doing it, by calling the bank and saying, I am so-and-so, this is my birthday, this is my social security number. All of the information that she didn't have, the other lady that she didn't have, she was able to get from the power company. And I'm sitting here going, this is insane. And so I am sharing with you today from a position that it is so important that you are able to understand that if you get an email that's suspicious, you get a text message that doesn't look right, and they're asking you for information, do not give it to them. I never forget that, just recently I had someone contact me saying that I had an old debt and that they were calling from XYZ company that I needed to clear this debt. And, they were giving me all this stuff and they were asking me to verify that I was who they were saying that I was. Then they wanted me to verify my address and I told them, I said, I do not verify any information over the phone. I don't verify any information in a text message. I don't verify any information in an email. I don't know who you are. I understand you say that this is something that I had done years ago and you're trying to help me fix it. I get it. However, send that to me at the last known address that you have for me. God bless you and have a nice life. I'm serious because I am not that person who is going to be caught in a situation. I gave someone my information. because I thought I was doing the right thing. And this happened some years ago, but it took us 3 years for me to correct the error that happened because of that. They got into our accounts and did all kinds of things because I thought it was someone official. Another phishing attack that I've seen happen is when a business gets information saying that certain things has expired, and in order for you to renew, they want you to contact this person at this phone number, and you call them, and then they start asking you for information, and then you feel legally, bound to give it to them because you think it's an official situation. I've had people represent that they were working with the IRS. I've had people represent that they were part of the FBI. I'm saying that these things happen, and people don't, they don't realize that they're fearful of these authorities. And so they will give the information away thinking that that was what they were supposed to do because of the official sounding person on the other line with giving you their badge number or their operator's number and all this stuff that really is a farce and does not exist. So I am saying that when you get a deceptive email, you won't always know that it's deceptive. You should always check. Look at the URL. I had someone tell me they were sending me a message in an email from Amazon, and it wasn't Amazon.com. It was Amazon at something 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 dot ymail.com. And it's like, what in the world? Well, if I hadn't looked at the email address, I might would have responded with the information they were requesting because they were giving me some prize. Okay. Like, what in the world? So these things do happen. And as business owners, we have to be vigilant to make sure that we do not end up in a situation. Then another one of these common threats is ransomware. Malware that encrypts data and demands a ransom for its decryption. And I have seen this happen to business owners. I've had it happen to my mother-in-law. I've seen older people get these ransomware messages. And, one of my husband's aunts, it happened to her. And she was, trying to respond to it because she thought she was supposed to, she had to give these people money for them to help her unlock her emails. And it turned out that, of course, this was a ransomware attack. And so you've got to be able to understand that if it's something that looks suspicious, it doesn't feel right, or even if it looks official, do a second check, have someone else look at it. Don't open an email from someone that you just don't know. Just don't do it, because even though it could be, something very powerful and beneficial, my thing is this: if you didn't request it and all of a sudden you're starting to get emails from a specific email address, or I've had it happen with somebody sending me emails saying that they're one of my kids, okay? And there were things that they were saying in it that, as a parent, I was very alarmed, and I just picked up the phone and made a phone call. Hey, did you send me something? Are you okay? And it was one of those type of attacks. So please, please, please do not fall, prey to these. Make sure you check, because you could be in a situation where you could compromise a lot of things in your company and personally by responding to a ransomware attack. One of the things that happened some years ago, and I don't know if it's the same with PCs now, but I know that, when I did have a PC, there was a time where I got, this message that came up and it took over my whole screen. It was doing all kinds of things. And in order for me to make it stop, they wanted me to contact someone at this particular phone number. I kindly turned my computer off and reset to factory settings and went back and added everything back. And it was, of course, fine. But I have come to understand that those types of attacks, now have become more sophisticated from what I understand. I don't know if it's still the same with how the ransomware works, but I'm just saying that you need to get some official I would say professional guidance when it comes to something like that these days, because we want to make sure that, you're not playing into, you thought that you knew what you were doing. You downloaded something else to fix the ransomware attack, and now you've got a worse situation on your hands. And then denial of service attacks. These are, how people, put you in a situation where they overwhelm your computer with the network traffic to try to disrupt the services at your location and prevent legitimate people from accessing your resources. I had someone do that to us last year on our website. They got in through, because I had some different types of, I had these little contact us forms on our website, and it would give people the ability to send us an email through the contact us form, not knowing that the type of form that it was vulnerable to these particular DOS a attacks. So when you're in a situation where you have a denial of service attack, you don't always know what it is that started it, or for that matter, where they got in, but you might have been vulnerable because of something like having a contact us form, or something else that was, voluntarily allowing people to gain access to your systems. And so you want to make sure that you are not positioning yourself in a poor manner where it makes it easy, for people to get to you in this way. And, that way you won't have to concern yourself with a denial of service attack. Then, of course, data breaches. And this is one of the top ways that people gain access to your personally identifying information, your username and passwords, combinations. And then, they get access to them because data breaches happen, and it puts the information out there. Sometimes they get access to other information as well. Like one of the larger banks had a data breach this past summer, and that data breach released a lot of information that went to the dark web. There was another one that happened earlier in the year that made, billions of information, billions of these different pieces of information were released. And as such, they combined it with other information that they already had in the dark web. And now people, had these compromised accounts because of it. And so unauthorized access to sensitive information is a real thing. And you need to be aware that you could have potential reputational damage at your company, financial losses, and even legal liabilities, because if you house other people's information and someone is able to get into your computer or into your cloud space where the information is housed, you could be vulnerable financially for not, having some type of a system that was capable of protecting the information of your customers and clients. So I want you to be aware, and even protecting the information of the people who work with you, your team. This is a real situation, and you need to be very aware of how it works and what you can do to fix it. So let's talk about this. How do we prioritize cybersecurity for executives? Well, we can have a proactive approach, which would be developing a robust cybersecurity strategy. And we can allocate the resources by investing in the security tools and technologies. And then, of course, we can have employee training, educating our employees and our, contractors that on what the best practices are to thwart these, these attacks, and what threat awareness looks like in your particular industry. And another proactive approach is implementing strong access controls. That could be two-factor authentication. It could be, having stronger passwords to get into certain levels of the areas in your company that require a username and password. It could be regularly updating your software systems when you're talking about allocating resources. That could be spending the money necessary so that you don't end up having to spend more money later. It's really important to understand that putting a little money after, you've had a situation happen, is too late in the game. I mean, yes, you'll have to do it, but if you can protect your company beforehand, I don't care if you're spending more money to protect them beforehand than you really think you should. The bottom line is if you're out of business, then you won't have any money at all from that company. So you've got to do the things necessary to protect the company up front. Then you want to encourage a culture of security awareness. This is very, very important when you're training to make sure that the team understands what it is that your intentions are and the culture of your company when it comes to cyber awareness. Because when they have the ability to understand what it means to make things secure, they're less likely to make a mistake, or for that matter, to allow someone to come in. There are people that just don't have the same feelings about secure access. Coming from different types of industries in the past, or even homes where they don't have to lock the door, and then now they're in your company and they've got a fob and a key card to everything, maybe a bit of a higher reach for a lot of people, so it's important to understand the type of awareness that people need to have in order for them to do a good job at protecting your most valuable assets, your company's IP, the people who work with you and for you, all protecting their information, and as well as protecting your customers' information. This is very important, and you need to make it important on all levels so that everyone understands what goes into making sure that your company is safe. So, what are some of the best practices for securing your network? Well, one of the first things you want to do is have a first line of defense, at least in having a firewall system. And some of the computers are kind of made with those now, but there are some people who are working on older systems or working on systems that are still using more antiquated kind of softwares. And I won't call them antiquated. I'll say they're using softwares that predated some of these types of systems that are out there now. And because of that, it's easier for people to get in, to everything that's on the system. So you want to have the ability to filter network traffic and block unauthorized access. I talked to a pastor who has, developed out some software that he's going to be using. And we talked about access controls, what kind of level of control are the people that are going to be accessing this particular part of your software a part of your company? And if so, give them a username and inside of your own domain so that you can control access to the back office of what you've developed by just the domain itself. They have to have a domain from your company in order for them to get into the software. But there are other levels of access. So you need to decide what level of access and control needs to be in place based on how you are using your systems. Okay. And then intrusion detection systems. When something happens, or if something is attempting to happen, if you have an intrusion detection system, it'll monitor the network activity for suspicious patterns. And then it will alert the security teams to potential threats. It sometimes will shut everything down and not allow anyone to use it until some things have been addressed. And it's very important for you to understand the level that you need, because if you need an intrusion detection system, you need to put it in place, and sooner rather than later, so that you're not looking up and having to deal with whatever happened as a result of you not having that in place. Okay. All right. So antivirus and anti-malware Okay, software. These protect devices from known viruses and malware, preventing infection and data loss. And I remember not on this computer, but on another one of my Mac computers that is used for a different way than what I use this computer. I have a malware detection system on there because I frequent the internet often on that website. I mean, on that computer. I frequent websites often, and sometimes there are newer websites that I have never frequented before. And so I'm not always as familiar with what is going on with the different sites. So since I use that computer for that purpose, I have detection systems in place to make sure that if something happens, it's going to tell me. Now, with the newer iOS softwares for Mac computers, it has so many ways to protect your interest on your computer and on your tablets also. And so I'm using almost all of those, from using their passwords that are created by the system to making sure that I am only using certain types of emails when I'm buying things online or when I'm signing up for certain kinds of access to different types of webinars and things of that nature, because there are people who are looking for opportunities, and sometimes some of these things don't even exist. You signed up for a webinar and find out later that it was something else, and it was an attempt for people to get information. So I am saying that because we live in a broken, fallen scenario, and as far as our world is concerned, and there are people who are out there doing things that are not having your best interests at heart, it is your responsibility to make sure you are locking down as much as you can on your computer and in your tablets and in your phones so that you're not their next victim. Okay. And having these strong passwords, like I said, using a password provider that creates passwords for you that are strong, using, those complex passwords alongside of a two-factor authentication system for critical accounts. Not every account may need that, but for what is considered a critical account for you, it's going to be really important. And then regularly updating. Oh my goodness, this is so important. When you are keeping your software, your operating systems regularly updated, making sure you at least are doing the security updates that are critical and the things that create a pathway for somebody to get in your system is being completely blocked, because you are making sure that you put those patches in place that are created, by the companies that created your software that you're using, your operating system. Not, I'm just being honest with you. I'm a little suspicious about some of these companies because I think sometimes they create a reason for you to have to buy their software. But I will tell you that I've had very good success when I buy the security updates for devices that are not or that require that type of security, like a PC or whatever, from the company that created that computer. When I'm buying their software or even the software that they suggest, the likelihood of me being in a situation where I am vulnerable is a lot less. Okay. Now, how do you protect sensitive data and information? Well, we have three ways. The first thing is data encryption. Convert data into unreadable code. I love the fact that on the Mac recently, with the most recent update, iOS 18, for the computers and the tablets, iPad OS 18, and then for the actual Mac computer, I believe is the 15, I believe, the OS 15. What has happened is that you now have the ability in all of the native apps to, have a different way of protecting your information when you use those apps. And what I love about the Notes software inside of Apple is that you can encrypt a note, you can encrypt, and really lock down information within a note. And so that's very important to me, because there are certain times where I'm jotting down my information, I'm putting things in the notes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't, create something to lock it, especially when it comes to intellectual property, being able to encrypt that. So if somebody gets their hands on your computer, you left it open at your desk and you did not have it set to timeout after a certain amount of minutes, and someone is able to get in just for a minute, stick in a drive and snatch everything. If it's encrypted, they won't get anything, or anything of value. So making the information incomprehensible to unauthorized individual is the plan when you encrypt the data. Okay, that's very important. And then, of course, having access controls. I talked about this a few minutes ago, limiting access to sensitive data based on roles and permissions. Not everybody needs to have access to everything. And it's important for you to have that system in place of prioritizing who gets what and when, at what level they get access, okay, and how you're going to give it to them. You sending a password to somebody through a text message, okay, or for that matter in an email, may not be your best bet for providing them the ability for them to get into a secure place. So you might want to think about that again on how you provide information. And there are softwares that are available. There are databases that you can, house things in and give people access, to just that information that you are providing them. We use Airtable a lot for that kind of thing. But we also have other softwares that we use, that will provide. We have portals. We have legal portals. We have educational portals. And those portals will send a person a link to their email. They'll have to put in their information in order for them to get into the portal. And now inside the portal, then there's another level of access that they have to have in order to get what it is that they're trying to have when we're trying to transmit something that's secure. Now, some things is just we give them the link, they click on the link, and it takes them to their portal. It just depends on how secure the data needs to be. But that's a one-time access, and they cannot go back into that same instance without getting another link. There's a reason why we provide secure links, because we want people to only access what is absolutely required for their authorization, to the data that we're providing them. So I am saying that you need to put something in place, if you don't have this in place, for your company, to make sure that you are not vulnerable to any type of breach or attack or anything like that. And then, of course, the data backups. This is a very important part of what you're doing. You got to regularly create copies of important data that you can ensure to be able to restore your devices, okay? Because let me tell you one more thing that happened. We had a device go down. We had no idea that the hard drive was going to fail, and it failed. And the critical data that was on that particular hard drive was lost forever. They could not recover it. There was nothing we could do to get it back. There was no instance of a backup that got that particular data in it, because we were not backing up regularly enough for it to capture everything. So then maybe for you that you're doing nightly backups based on what it is that you are doing in your company. And it may be that you set it up for weekly backups, or for that matter, every time something is changed may be a backup. And those are things that you can set inside of your devices, depending on the kind of devices that you have, so that you can make sure that you never lose access to the information that you're putting on your devices. Keeping things in the cloud is a huge, huge help when it comes to backing up the data, so that you don't end up with a data loss. Okay, so how can you engage your employees to be educated on tech safety? Well, let's provide some threat awareness classes. These are really important. Sometimes you can send them to a class online, send them to a LinkedIn course, send them to a webinar, send them like one of my close alliances was with a company that actually provided cybersecurity. And so we tried to make sure that everyone that was within our Red Worldwide community at that time had access to these courses because we thought it was very beneficial for them to be able to be aware of what's out there. So when you're educating employees and contractors that work with you to the common threats and telling them how to identify suspicious activities so that they will be able to help you keep your company safe, it helps to make sure that you have an extra level of security, an extra layer in between you and a potential threat. All right. And then, of course, having the right password security and training the employees on how to create a strong password, how to have two-factor authentication when it's required or when it's offered, and, how to avoid sharing their credentials with other people, because sometimes, and most of the time, I have seen people use the same credentials for several types of accounts. Then they share those credentials with others to, I'm going to give you my credentials to let you get into such and such, so you can use my software access to do whatever it is you're doing, and not realizing that that information could be passed to another friend of theirs or a colleague or whatever. And now your information is out there like that. You don't know what a person would do, for the right price. And so I am saying to you that you want to make sure that you're just not sharing your credentials. If it's a community account, create a way for the community to be able to get in that does not include your personally identifying information. So that you don't end up being the vulnerable one in this particular case. Then use the best practices. We've talked about some best practices today, some things that you can use, to make sure you're securing your company's future. Make sure you're handling sensitive information and reporting security incidents, accordingly, because if there's something that, is being done, everyone in the company needs to be aware when the company has been vulnerable to attack. There may be things that others saw that you didn't see, or that others came across that were not in your purview, that could help you create a stronger system of support for locking things down in your company. And then lastly, you want to make sure that, again, that there is a regular training, not just one training, but you want to do an annual or even a semi-annual training to help people learn, how to make your company more secure. Okay, and what the security measures are that you guys are going to be using. So what is our conclusion today? How do we stay ahead of the tech threats? Well, we have a proactive approach by regularly reviewing and updating security measures to adapt to evolving threats. Then we also want to invest in technology, allocate the resources to implement advanced security tools and technologies, and then, of course, have these partnerships in place. Collaborate with cybersecurity experts for guidance and support. Because that's going to be important, to invite people in your world that can help you keep your company safe is probably one of the best things that you can do. And I am sharing with you that for us, it has been, a good experience to go a whole year and not have an identity threat, because of something that happened in the company, or for that matter, have some other type of risk that we experienced because we just didn't know what we didn't know and were using poor practices, which caused us to be more vulnerable to attack. And then lastly, of course, the continuous learning, staying informed about the latest cybersecurity trends and best practices, as well as staying informed about the threats that have been out there, the potential things that are occurring. Because when you have the ability to do that, then you can be ahead of your next attack and make sure that your company is not the company that is brought up in these 9 billion email and password combinations that are going out to the dark web. Well, this has been Dr. Patience Jackson Rose with Co-working Live with Red Worldwide, and we are so excited that you've been here to join with us today, and we will see you again next time.